Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire to Inspire. The show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I hope you guys are all doing so good. I am super excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 108. I truly, truly hope you guys are having an amazing week. I hope that there's sunshine around you. I know that the days got longer. Well, they didn't technically get longer. Hours, we set our clocks backwards, basically. So that's always super nice. It makes the days feel longer. Regardless, if you guys haven't checked out last week's episode 107, The Benefits of Sitting in Silence, I definitely encourage you to. Full transparency, I yawned 3 times during that podcast. I think it's because I was talking in a very monotone, calm voice. But nonetheless, outside of the yawns, it truly is a powerful episode. And so I hope you take the time to go listen to it and hear some of the benefits of how sitting in silence could better your life and help you heal. But nonetheless, today is one I think you guys are going to love. And that is how to start speaking your damn truth. Wow, is speaking our truth hard. It is the hardest thing. It is so uncomfortable. It is icky. It is weird. We all have a weird relationship with it. Depending on, our experiences and things, I think that this can look different for all of us. But I do think that to some extent, we kind of all struggle with this, right? And the kind of the way that I wanted to preface today's episode is, do you know that feeling when you get something stuck in your throat? Like you're eating dinner, you're doing, whatever, maybe having some popcorn, watching a movie, and you just get some stuck in your throat. And it feels like a lump. It's like, I can't get it out. I've tried drinking water. I've tried coughing. I've tried everything. And it just feels lunged in there. And you can still breathe, right? But your awareness keeps going there. It keeps drawing back to that thing. Why? Because your body notices something's there that shouldn't be. But the only way really for that sensation to go away and for our mind to stop thinking about it is to get that thing unstuck, right? And so what if I told you that in many ways, holding back from speaking your truth, having uncomfortable conversations, dealing with hard situations, people, circumstances, whatever, is kind of the same. As much as we like to just ignore it and feel like if we don't bring awareness to it, it'll just go away. That might be the case sometimes, but a lot of the times it will keep bothering us, especially if those same people are in our lives, right? We're just going to constantly keep being reminded of that situation, especially if we associate it with a person. We're constantly going to keep spiraling around that thing. And I'm sure you can think of an experience that you've had in your life where you've maybe dealt with this or felt this, where you just had to almost do a 1, 2, 3 and have a hard conversation because it's so hard to do. We're so scared of getting yelled at, getting lashed out at, getting hurt, losing someone, hurting someone's feelings, being wrong, being right. There's so many instances that can go into this. But the thing is that when we hold back our truths and avoid having hard conversations, if you know me, you know I am very into chakras or chakras or however you properly pronounce it. I believe it's properly pronounced chakra. I call it a chakra. I think I'm saying it incorrectly. That's just kind of how you guys know what I'm talking about. It's basically these energetic discs that we have throughout our body, and they basically allow for different energy to pass through. And we have one in our throat. And oftentimes what happens is when that chakra becomes blocked, we have a really hard time speaking our truth and expressing our truth and then living in our truth. And I had a Reiki massage a little over 6 months ago. And she said that when she got to my throat, she felt like somebody was holding onto her neck. And I felt the same thing. I felt like someone just had their hands around my throat and they were choking me because I had so much built up resistance of speaking my truth because I've never really been one to stand up for myself. I would avoid conflict like the plague. I hate it. I say did. I still don't like it. I'm getting better at it because I know that hard conversations are crucial, especially as an adult. They're going to happen, they're inevitable. However, I had built up so much resistance to speaking my truth that my throat chakra became completely blocked, right? I had a fear of speaking, which is quite ironic in the fact that I now have a podcast, but I truly did. I had a fear of speaking in front of other people, of giving presentations, of speaking my truth, etc. And this can perpetuate and lead to feelings of depression, of anxiety, of low self-esteem. It can cause fear of speaking or may cause you to shut down and rather than speak up, which perpetuates the cycle. And I think that it can lead to depression and anxiety and these self-esteem things is because every time that we don't stick up for ourselves, we're basically going in reverse of ourselves, of what our needs are. And every time we don't meet our needs, a part of our body is going like, you don't love me? You don't care about me? Am I not important? Is what I'm needing not valuable? And that typically comes from a younger part of us within that maybe never got that validation, maybe constantly seeked it and was often let down. And so we have to be willing to honor also where this comes from for us of it's often a protector part of us that's like, hey, if we do that, that could mean something dangerous. So maybe let's not do that thing called speaking our truth. But my goal of today's episode is for you guys to begin to recognize where you're at with this, as well as to kind of share a few tips and tricks that have helped me along my way with this journey. Because I do think we all have a different relationship to this. And I think that we can kind of overcorrect and think we don't have a hard time speaking our truth. But in retrospect, it's actually just coming out as arrogance and as an overinflated view of our truth, not our real truth. I'm talking speaking and expressing your real truth, which can be really hard depending on the people that you're expressing it to, of if you know if they're going to be receptive or if they're going to lash out at you. And so I wanted to share a little story with you guys that happened, I'm going to say about 2 months ago. God, I'm so bad with like time frames of knowing when things happened. I think it's about 2 months ago. And I was feeling, and I know my mom wouldn't mind me sharing this story because she's the best and she would just want anybody to be able to learn from this as possible. And this experience, I think, helped both of us. So I want to share from it with you guys because it took a lot of courage for both of us, I think. But I was feeling a certain type of way towards my mom. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I couldn't figure it out because my mom is my favorite person in the whole wide world. Both my parents are. I love them so deeply and dearly. But I had just like this resistance towards my mom. And I felt like, she didn't love me as much as I felt like I had deserved. And, she liked my brother more and she liked my nephew more. And I just had internalized so much stuff and so much pain. And instead of speaking that truth long ago, because I had been feeling this way for years and years without really realizing it consciously. And again, this wasn't like always front of the room, like issues that were going on. So of course it was easy to just kind of slide under the rug. But as I mentioned, I was always good at putting my needs last. So I just kind of ignored it and suppressed it and told myself that that's just how it is. And you have to just accept that. And so I finally get the courage one day to say, Mom, I'm really feeling the need to just share this. And I sent a big paragraph of how I'm feeling. And we had a really vulnerable, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of it just for our relationship and just for confidentiality of that conversation. But basically we just had a very vulnerable conversation. We both cried. We both just expressed our truth. And now our relationship is flourishing so much better than it was. That elephant is out of the room that was there for me. But the thing is she never knew that. And that oftentimes that happens, right? We have these experiences and these feelings, and we think that the other person can just read our mind, but they can't. And she had no idea. And if somebody has no idea, how are they supposed to fix the situation? How are they supposed to know what they're doing wrong if you don't communicate it? I'm realizing, we're not all mind readers. Even though we think we all are sometimes, we're not. And we have to remember that. And the only way that we can really get over those things that are bothering us is to lean into courage and vulnerability and humility and be willing to have those hard conversations. Now, the thing is, what I wanted to leave you guys with today is that me 2 years ago would have never freaking done that. Like, gross conflict, making my mom, because the biggest thing why I think I didn't want to have the conversation is I didn't want my mom thinking she was a bad person or that, I didn't love her, or I didn't want her internalizing it and getting hurt. And so I avoided it. But in return, I was the one that kept getting hurt. And it's like, okay, at what point can we meet in the middle so that we can both be feeling good, even if it means being uncomfortable for a little bit? But me 2 years ago would have never had that conversation, ever. I would have suppressed that till the end of time. What changed is what I want to share with you guys. The first one is my worth. My self-worth has increased. My self-worth has increased drastically over the last 2 years. And again, self-belief and self-worth are completely different. Self-belief is, I believe I can record this podcast, I can upload it, and I will be consistent. Worth is, I feel like people will listen. I feel like people will give a crap. I feel like people will care what I have to say. But do you see how they're different? I have the belief I can do it, but I don't feel worthy that it'll actually make a difference. They're completely different things, and I never realized that there was a difference between the two of them. And so my self-worth has raised, and that's come from listening to my intuition, doing things that are right for me, choosing things that are right for me, showing up for myself, keeping promises I make to myself, surrounding myself with better people, getting out of toxic relationships. There's been all these things, and I'm going to make a podcast episode for you guys all about raising our self-worth and just some things that have really helped me, because I'm realizing that that's really the mission that I'm on with my podcast, is finding people that have low levels of worth. Even today, I wrote it on my journal, like in front of me, women's worth. Women feel worthy, or not very worthy a lot of the time. And we can see fake confidence and all these things, and we think people feel good, but it's like they don't. They might have belief, but they don't have worth. I think it's something we all struggle with. So anyways, side tangent, but that's something I didn't have. The second thing that I lacked big time is self-awareness. It can be really hard to speak our truth if we feel like we don't have a lot of self-awareness. And when you start to become aware of your emotions and the source of it, it becomes harder and harder not to speak your truth, right? This for me was gained by taking time to get to know my values, my passions, my purpose, by healing. Self-awareness, I have a ton of episodes on here. If you just search it wasn't that long ago. Again, here I am with my time frames. Search back. There's a couple that have to do with self-awareness. And raising that was one of the biggest ways that I was able to start speaking my truth and having those hard conversations, because once you're aware of how something is affecting you, it's really hard to not take action. You're either going to sit with it and feel the pain, or you're going to take action to do something differently. The third thing, you get tired of feeling trapped in your own mind. You get tired of just like, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have said that. We get around someone and we really want to say something, we don't, and then later we beat ourselves up, and guess who's then left feeling like crap? You are, right? And so I think eventually we just get tired of telling ourselves the same stories over and over again. And it's so freeing. Once we had that conversation, I just felt like, oh, thank God, I feel like I can breathe again. Even if the outcome wasn't necessarily, I didn't have an expectation of the outcome. I just knew I needed to get it off my chest. We say all the time, like even as a counselor, people just want to get things off their chest. Sometimes releasing and just processing through is the best thing that we can do. But if we're just constantly holding on to things that we know we want to say and we want to share and we need to express, especially to those we love most, especially to those we love most. And I know those can be the hardest ones because we're so scared to hurt them, but they're so freeing. And so once you get tired of spiraling and thinking the same thought over and over again, I encourage you to write your thoughts out on paper first, because that's what I did. I wrote out how I was feeling on paper first, and then I got the courage to actually have the conversation. But I wasn't really ready to just have the conversation because I didn't know, really the words that I wanted to say. And I was scared that in the moment, my emotions were going to take over and I wasn't going to be able to actually say what I wanted to. So writing a letter or writing it down is super, super helpful. We got to remember that we need to, with anything that's hard, if we practice at it, we'll get better, right? Practice and ask ourselves, what is the worst thing that can happen if I do this? But what is also the best thing? What are the pros of doing this? What are the cons of this? Being able to ask ourselves, what is the worst case scenario? Worst case, we have a hard conversation and, they maybe need to take some time. Best case, they agree, they want to work through it. We both lean into vulnerability and have a very open conversation. But if we are able to tell our mind, like, it's going to go to the negative, it's going to think of the worst case. But if we can just hold space and give it that best case scenario, we're also allowing our mind the opportunity to see what could go right, which can give us the courage that we might need to just take that first step, right? So just know that speaking your truth can be hard. It's one of the hardest things, I think, especially as women. For some reason, we have such a hard time. And again, I think it comes from our lack of worth, right? We don't feel worthy to have those hard conversations. We don't feel worthy for things to be any different. So we just keep them the same. But it can also, again, be very freeing. It can set you free. It actually raises your sense of worth as you are starting to stand up for yourself. I encourage you to practice and know that you're worthy to have your voice heard. The way my mom responded just shows that those that are meant to be in your life and those that care about you deeply would rather you have those hard conversations with them than to tiptoe around and be fake in a way, right? I've been like that with people where I want to say something of how I'm truly feeling, but I don't. And I feel like then I can't organically be myself. And then the energy is just off. Something's different. Something's weird. It's awkward. And we know that it's that way, but nobody knows what the elephant in the room is. And so leading by example can also be huge, because maybe you speaking your truth gives somebody else the courage to do the same, which can actually really flourish and grow your relationship. Or it might be those hard truths that actually set you apart, but maybe that's actually the best thing if that relationship isn't the most in alignment for you. So I hope you guys take the time to just sit with what your relationship is with speaking hard truths. How are you able to raise your self-worth slowly over time? Raise your self-awareness. Get tired of your own, narratives and stories you're telling yourself, and practice. Lay out the worst case and the best case and see what happens. And it gets easier the more that you do it. I promise you that. But I can also promise you that it feels good to stand up for yourself. It feels good to voice your needs, because your body will almost thank you in a way of like, oh, thank God that's over. It can be hard. Again, it can be hard. I'm not saying having hard conversations doesn't always go south, but sometimes it can go really, really good and we'll be surprised. But we have to be willing, especially as adults, to be able to do that so we can mirror for our youth that having conversations is a part of life. Saying uncomfortable things, but speaking our truth is a part of life, and it's how we all grow, and not tiptoeing around that because you maybe feel less than the person that you're trying to speak your truth to. So I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you guys so much as always for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. If you're looking to connect, if you're looking to practice maybe some of your skills of speaking your truth, I would love to connect with you. There is a link in the description below to book a free 30-minute call with me. I would absolutely love to connect with you. I'm not going to sell you anything. I would like to just get to know the listeners. I am offering coaching services as well. So if that is something you might be interested in, we can rumble on that. But nonetheless, there's no expectations. I just want to get to know you guys and see if I can provide any value. So thank you all so much. I look forward to chatting with you all next week. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.